Male gametes. That's what makes me male.
No, your sperm don't make you male.
Then what does?
It's a constellation.
In reality, in truth, okay?
Whose truth are we talking about?
The same truth that says we're sitting in this room right now, you and I.
No, you're not listening.
If I see a chicken laying eggs and I say that's a female chicken laying eggs, did I assign female, or am I just observing a physical reality that's happening in the world?
Does a chicken have gender identity? Does a chicken cry?
Well,
Does a chicken commit suicide? Let's
does that have to do
frame
with-
it, because you're trying
The chicken has sex like any biological
chicken has
organism.
an assigned gender, but a chicken doesn't have a gender identity.
So we assign female to chickens when they lay eggs?
We assume they're female if they lay eggs.
Male gametes.
There you go. That's a little bit of the head scratching you're going to have to do if you watch Matt Walsh's new documentary put out through the Daily Wire. It's called What is a Woman? And I just finished watching the whole thing. I did it by using a link that somebody shared with me, but I can't share with you. In order to see this movie, you got to pay for it. And that is one of the problems, which I'll talk about in a second. Do we get to find out from this documentary? First of all, it's called What is a Woman? Is that question adequately answered? Well, even based Jordan Peterson is interviewed in this movie, and even he does not answer the question in a very clear way. And it does make clear that there are two different kinds of people. There are people who think that question has a really simple answer that's very easy to define. Then there's another group of people who apparently run the world that think it's incredibly complicated, and that if you're asking the question, you're probably transphobic and it's in bad faith and I'm walking out of this interview. I mean, that's what we've learned. That's what we learn from the documentary, that one side is completely unwilling to engage in debate about this issue. So will this documentary, which is good, which is well put together, which has this character, Matt Walsh, who certainly comes across as a very nice person, who doesn't seem too demanding, or he doesn't come across with all these terrible characteristics that people assign to him. He just seems sort of like an easygoing guy. He's direct, but doesn't seem harmful, and still just asking for simple things like the truth causes people to say to him that he's transphobic. So is it a documentary that could change hearts and minds? I think it's possible. Yeah, a so-called reasonable person who was watching this documentary, let's say a reasonable person on the left side of the spectrum, they could have their minds changed. They could learn some new things. They could learn about how this science developed around gender identity. They might scratch their heads. They might wonder if a chicken can be suicidal or not. And then if it is a suicidal chicken, then maybe it needs to change its gender so it doesn't want to commit suicide. That topic is addressed too. So yeah, it is a movie that I think to the right person would tell them about what's going on, and it might convince them that we're doing some things, particularly with children, that are highly experimental and which the outcomes are at best unknown. A person could watch this movie and come away learning some new things. That gets to part of the problem, though, which isn't the way the film was released, which is that you have to pay for it to watch it. Unless you get a secret link like I did, you got to go to Daily Wire, and I'll show you. You go to whatisawoman.com. If you go to whatisawoman.com, you get to this site eventually where you have to pay for a membership. And this is the Daily Wire site, so it's put out through the Daily Wire, and it looks like it's going to cost you a minimum of $14 if you go for a monthly, if you go for the billed monthly plan, which I hate to go after Daily Wire, but they do. It is a little sneaky here, even on their website. The monthly plan doesn't even get a red button, so it's as if you can't select the monthly plan when in fact it looks like you can. But they don't give it its own red button, which is a little sneaky. And then if you want to take advantage of the discount that you get with discount code WOMAN, you get 25% off the annual membership, which would be about $80. So you could pay $14 for the monthly, or you could subscribe for a full year of Daily Wire. I'll tell you, the issue is that you'd like to be able to share this movie with, let's say, your liberal friends or with open-minded people, and you're unable to, basically, without doing something that I don't think you should do, and share somebody's copyrighted content when, they deserve to make money. And it is one of the problems. It's the way 2000 Mules was put out too. 2000 Mules is a movie that should red pill people about what happened in the election, right? It's got some really explosive information, but most people aren't going to see it, particularly people who wouldn't necessarily already agree with the content that they're putting out. And in this case, like me, I already pretty much mostly agree with Matt Walsh's point of view. So the movie for me, maybe it is worth it to pay for it. But for somebody else, somebody on the left, let's say, especially having to give your money to the Daily Wire just to watch this movie, that is a big barrier. So I don't know if it's a problem with the way content has to be put out. I mean, this is what people are doing. It's what I do with some of my content, is put it behind a type of a paywall where you have to be a subscriber to hear it. One way to get around it is maybe put out an audio version only and then make people pay for the video version. But I get it. It takes money. It takes time. And they did put in money and time into this documentary to make it into something that's very watchable, basically. And like I said, for what you would think of as your regular, reasonable person, should be able to sit through this movie and get something out of it. So that's the hurdle you have to go through if you want to pay for it. I should say it's worth. Let me say that. For their benefit, they put the time into it. They put in the effort. He did a lot of great interviews. He sits down with people that wouldn't necessarily agree with him and asks them the questions that he wants answered. And what you learn, like I said, is that the one side won't engage in debate. No less than 3 times throughout the documentary, people that he sat across from say they're going to walk out or they're going to end the debate. One guy, a college professor, he asks him about the truth. And the guy says that asking for the truth is transphobic, literally. And it does make your head spin, but this is the way people think. And it is an ideology, and it is like a faith where you talk to these people and they're completely unwilling to engage. Completely. He gets a congressperson in his office to start talking about this congressperson who is the most outspoken about transgender issues and wants this equality bill, which would let transgender people use whatever bathroom they want, apparently. Well, Matt Walsh asks him about the bathroom thing. And because Matt Walsh asked him that question, this is a guy who's a congressperson who should answer questions that are important to constituents, says just because he asked about the bathroom thing, that was in bad faith, and he walked right out of that interview. And in other moments, other people that he's talking to with the same kind of ideology, same thing. They just say, oh, no, we're going to end this debate. I think you're acting in bad faith. Just asking what is a woman. He got screamed out of the Women's March where he went to find out what is a woman. And the women started chanting things at him. Like that happened to me before when they started calling me a Nazi when I was covering Antifa. It's what happened to Matt Walsh. They started calling him an a-hole because he was insisting to find out what is a woman. What's the simple answer? It's like what Madison Cawthorn said, 2X chromosomes, no tallywhacker, right? That's the simple answer. He goes and he talks to an African tribe to see what their thoughts are about gender identity. Here, and they give their answer for what a woman is. I have that clip for you too. Let me play that clip for you, okay?
What if a man decides that his gender identity is woman?
A woman has its own duty and a man has its own duty, and a lady cannot do the duty of a man, and a man cannot do a duty of a woman.
Can a man become a woman?
Kid molla rengro? No,
No.
no.
What about a transgender?
Te?
Transgender?
Dorogid kid mo na ipibelega nyolle me rengro? No.
No.
It look like if you want to become a lady but you're a man, you have something wrong in
Something
your mind.
wrong.
Something wrong in your family, something wrong in you.
What about if someone was non-binary?
Come again?
Non-binary? Do you know, like someone is
You're not a woman, you're not a man.
yeah, someone is neither. There's something else. Is that
Idugro amman na yi kid mayr na yolle peria gwan topis. He's saying we have never seen things like those. For a man, he has a penis. For a woman, he has a vagina. So we know this is a lady, this is a man.
what if it's a woman with a penis?
Both.
Is that
Kid mayne vegere ngiro entabo.
people are laughing? Is that a dumb question?
So there's another clip. That's when he goes to Africa, and that shows you that it is something that is unique to Western civilization. And it's not necessarily, yes, we are different. And in fact, in the West, we have this African tribe has very defined roles for men and women. And I don't think, at least for a liberal to look at it, they might say, okay, well, that's not what we want. You know, we want women to be able to fulfill different roles, not be assigned certain roles in their society like these guys say. But it does show that they don't even understand not what is non-binary. And it shows that different societies have different opinions about this stuff. And that shit gets shown off these days also in companies that display their pride flags right now in the United States, but not in the Middle East, not in India, not in countries that aren't going to be fans of those things. So it shows that this is a uniquely Western problem, if you want to call it that. Now, just a few things that get touched on that are good in the piece is he talks to athletes, female athletes. Of course, these are big issues. These are the winning issues, I think, that almost anybody can see. And it really makes the other side look crazy. When they start talking about female athletics, he interviews a few females, one from the women's swim team who competed with Leah Thomas, speaking anonymously about her experience on the team and how she was treated on the team. That's worth listening to. Another female athlete who talks about what it was like losing to two male to female transgender athletes and what that experience is like, how demoralizing it is. And then cut to an interview with a transgender activist who says that there is no advantage, and that people who say that there's an advantage for male to female transgender athletes, that people who say that don't know what they're talking about. I mean, it just seems ridiculous on its face. Like, people can see. With Leah Thomas, it made it very clear, but there are other transgender athletes and are featured in this documentary that make it clear that it's not fair, right? I mean, Martina Navratilova, of course, female, lesbian, queer activist, her whole life, marginalized because she says that men can't compete with women. You know, it's something that's very obvious. I think it's a winning topic in politics and everything. And then the other thing that I think is made clear in this story, and was made clear by this Democrat senator walking out of the interview when he asked about it, is this bathroom and locker room issue. And I know that personally from my wife, because for me, this locker room issue, this bathroom issue, and they bring up the Wee Spa incident, is women. There are women who don't like being around penises, and that's it. And they don't care, whether it's a nice transgender person who's not doing anything bad. They just don't want to be around dicks. I mean, to me, I don't care. If a woman who identifies as a man wants to use a locker room with me, I don't give a shit, and I'll try to be really respectful and stuff. But for women, obviously, this is an issue. He interviews one Spanish-speaking couple, and the girl is just like, I don't want to be around penises. And I think that, once again, is a winning issue. I think that's an issue that it just crosses ideological boundaries, where there are women who who know that men are perverts, basically, or they have experience with perverted men, and they just don't want to be around it in their own spaces. So the fact that this Democrat congressperson isn't even willing to talk about it just shows you how lost they are on that particular end of the debate. But the other thing you come away with is that institutions seem to be completely run by people who believe this, what is, crazy ideology, who believe this crazy gender ideology. And we are, in a way, for now, at a loss because these people won't engage at all. So I think that things like this documentary are helpful for moving the conversation forward in as much as you can get people to see it. So let's see how the distribution works, how people watching it works. I don't know if you're going to be able to see it next. I don't know if pirated versions of it are what everybody is going to see and then nobody's going to sign up for the Daily Wire website. I think people should. I think it's worth it. I paid $12 to see a Tom Cruise movie, $14 to see this Matt Walsh movie, which they did put a lot of time and effort into. Isn't crazy. So, that's my review. I think it's worth watching, and I think you can learn something from it too. And hats off to Matt Walsh for making it. It's tough putting together a good documentary. So that's my thoughts on it. Thanks everybody for listening. If you want to get all my content, this I'm going to post to YouTube because it's legal. If you want to get all my content, subscribe to lifttheveil.substack.com. You'll get everything I put out emailed to you. You can become a premium subscriber there and get premium content. So, and it also supports my work. So, all my other links will be in the description. Thanks everybody. And that's what it is.